Well, new area. You know what that means? It's codec time.
Good. That's the back of the refinery. I see a door there, but it probably has an alarm. Can you use the ventilation duct?
You mean that huge fan?
Just cut off the blades as it spins. Easy, yes?
Easy.
Hey, Boris, about the Soliton radar. I noticed that it doesn't get jammed anymore, even if I get spotted by the
Now
enemy.
there's
Back in the
a
old days,
callback.
it'd be useless the second an alarm was triggered.
Well, once the Patriots fell, classified technology spread all over the world. This new Soliton radar is one example.
I love that
By
even
applying
that there's a
nonlinear
justification
Schrödinger
for.
equation to the Soliton
They could have just
solution,
as easily
they were
made a
able
little
to prevent
jamming
the
screen,
jamming
but
that
no.
plagued the original models based off the KDV
There's an
equation.
in-universe lore
I'm
reason
impressed.
as to
You know
why
your
it doesn't
stuff,
get
Mr.
jammed.
President.
Of course.
I
I'm a
really hope that
businessman.
they
You think I could
bring
run
the
a
Soliton
profitable
radar
PMSC
back in a
without
future
being up
game.
to date on the latest
It's
tech?
so good. Even
But
in
I
this, it's
wonder,
really useful.
How exactly is the equation?
And this one
built?
doesn't even have vision
I mean,
cones.
I'm no expert on how the KDV equation was implemented in the first place, but I'd love to know how the Schrödinger equation fits into all this.
Raiden, on battlefield, most important thing is how to use equipment, not theory behind it. The mission is #1 priority. So do not worry your head about equations and such things. Just concentrate on using the equipment to your advantage, da?
In other words, you have absolutely no idea, do you?
Ah, the mission, Raiden. Focus on the mission.
I love that.
Raiden, what I said about staying focused on the mission.
Understood. No need to explain.
I say this because I have been there. I have let my emotions take over on the battlefield. Some of the PMC work I did after my discharge was... They were gray area jobs. But that's all in the past. When I took on those former PLA soldiers to form Maverick,
Yep,
I laid
Paradise
out my
Lost.
conditions. We would only
That's still
take
canon. All the
operations
stuff
we
with him
believed in,
working with
and we would
Paradise
run them
Lost and
clean. No
Big Mama
exceptions.
back in the day, that all
Most
still
of them
happened.
agreed. They had their own bad memories from their time in Paradise Lost.
I can certainly attest to that.
Yes, of course. I forget who I'm talking with. Most of the ex-PLA have moved on now in any case. But the point remains the same. Everyone at Maverick is accountable for their actions. We are clear to take this job under international law. And we can use force against any cyborg hostiles under the basic rules of engagement. But remember, if we harm any civilians, on purpose or no, it will mean trouble.
I mean, one
All
civilian
kinds of
died
trouble.
under our watch,
So,
but it's
Stay in control.
listen, that was
Stay
the enemy,
on
not me.
mission.
Got it. Didn't you say you'd been here before, Boris?
Once, back when it was still Soviet territory.
Seems like it'd be a lovely place, if it weren't a war zone.
The Pearl of the Black Sea, they called it, back when more Russians lived there. It was very popular resort spot for the USSR. This is before the wall fell, of course. Then Russia and Georgia began to fight over the area.
Kicking off the war in the early 90s.
Georgia was a Soviet republic. Abkhazia, a semi-autonomous state within it. The Soviets liked to stoke ethnic rivalries between the two. And not just there, in all the outlying territories. It kept them easier to control.
But with the Russians no longer watching over the two.
Duh. The Abkhaz were scared. They knew an independent Georgia would swallow their nation sooner or later. So they took advantage of a Georgian military coup to declare their own independence.
Wouldn't be
in
Metal Gear
92.
if we didn't work
Of
some
course, the new Georgian government was
real
not
world
happy to hear
history
this,
in there.
and so
How to do it.
The same old story.
And with Russia supporting the Abkhaz, it was a stalemate. 2 years later, the ceasefire meant Abkhazia was finally independent, but not officially. They still are not formally recognized by Georgia, or most of the international community.
This region is filled with breakaway states.
This is true. There is South Ossetia, also in Georgia. Transnistria in East Moldova, and Nagorno-Karabakh, which broke from Azerbaijan. In any case, even Russia did not officially recognize Abkhazia as independent until 2008. So
That's
it
when
was not
MGS4
long ago
came out.
Sukhumi was a war zone. It has changed dramatically since then. They have been rebuilding steadily, with Russian support, ever since SOP was shut down.
Good to hear. But doesn't that leave them wrapped around Russia's little finger?
It does. Which is why Dolzaev is calling for a truly independent state. He wants an Abkhazia that takes orders from no one. Not Georgia, not Moscow.
Sounds like a worthy cause.
Duh. But many Abkhaz are happy with the reconstruction Russian support makes possible. Few of his fellow countrymen were interested in what Dolzaev had to say. At first.
And then Desperado showed up.
Exactly. They brought the sad ending to this little history lesson. It is no wonder so many people mistrust PMCs, eh?
I suppose not.
Yeah, soldiers without ideals or nations, yeah, not the most
You get all
trustworthy
that, Kev?
group of folk.
The woman with Dolzaev. That's Mistral?
Yep, the only female member of the Winds of Destruction. The name is from a cold, dry regional wind in France that blows from the Alps down to the Mediterranean.
She French?
Yep, born in Algeria, though. It was a French colony until they declared independence in the early 60s. Haha, but you already knew that.
Yeah. They were the last French colony in Africa.
You know your history. Plenty of French colonial families still live there. Bête Noire, they're called.
I've heard the term. The main character in that Camus novel, The Stranger, was one.
You also find a lot of Algerians who've immigrated to France.
The stranger,
Although they
huh?
put a stop to
Wonder if
that a
they'll
while
keep
ago.
bringing that up.
Yeah. A lot of European countries seem to be clamping down on immigration lately.
Mistral joined the Foreign Legion to get her citizenship.
A woman legionnaire?
And not the first. There was one that served in the North Africa campaign during World War II. Anyway, Mistral's been doing PMC work ever since her Legion discharge. We're not sure why she went cyborg. She's officially leading the force at the refinery, but she is also a combatant. Don't have anything on her combat style, but do not underestimate her. The Winds of Destruction are trained killers, all of them. They didn't let her in because of her looks.
I don't need a reminder. I won't let my guard down.
Yeah, but, speaking of her looks, she's got, well, I mean,
She's got what, Kevin?
a couple of, I mean,
Couple of
huge-
what?
Look, just don't get distracted, okay?
Sounds like you should take your own advice there, Kev.
Doctor,
Doc,
anything
my
to
fuel
say to
cells
us?
are running low. What happens if I completely tap them out?
You will lose the ability to perform any action which requires a great amount of energy. But even when your gauge reaches zero, you retain basic movement. You can walk around and swing your sword.
That's good to know.
Use this time to absorb more electrolytes from your enemies. Recharge your cells.
I like
as
that
soon
even
as
that
possible.
video game contrivance is contextualized. They do a lot of that. Things that could just easily be, it's a video game, don't worry about it. Nope. You're going to get context about it.
You need to save?
Sure. Taking a minute there, Courtney, all right?
Did you catch all that with Dolzaev and Mistral?
Yeah, I was monitoring the whole time. Dolzaev's not really what I expected. I've seen his file, plenty of photos, but I guess I expected someone more, I don't know, threatening?
Didn't seem too friendly to me.
No, I mean, you hear terrorist, you think of some cold, calculating professional. Dolzaev looks more like some guy off the street.
Cold, calculating professional types don't usually bother with terrorism. It's too risky. Most terrorists are ordinary people, radicalized one way or another.
Yeah, I guess so.
Of course, that doesn't make what they do any easier to forgive. What about Mistral? What'd you think?
Well, she's certainly attractive. Probably an artificial face, though. I'm guessing most of her is...
What did she mean by
Artificial.
this?
Roger that.
So Mistral's from Algeria. Have you ever been?
No. You?
Once, for a consulting job. Pretty short trip, though.
I hear it's pretty safe there now, compared to how things were at the start of this decade.
Yeah, I was able to slip a little sightseeing in. Pretty nice spot for a vacation. Kind of hot, though. 80% of it's the Saharan desert, and wow, it was just like you'd imagine. So much sand. You
This
could
chorus
easily
rough
imagine
gets
camel
everywhere.
caravans trekking beneath the early evening moon. It was like something from another world.
Yeah? I thought only a sixth of the Sahara was sandy like that. The French carried out a bunch of nuclear tests there too, I remember.
But once you reach the Mediterranean coast, it's a totally different place. All these white-walled buildings framed against intense blue sea. It's a really stark contrast.
Were you in Algiers? I know that the capital looks a lot like that.
Yep. The local cuisine's totally French influenced. I'll never forget this one
So
lunch
here's
near
where
my
we get to the
hotel.
thing that Courtney
baguette
nerds
sandwich
out
and
about,
cafe
which is
au lait.
food. She
Simple
loves
and
food.
simply unforgettable.
Can't blame her. I'm a big fan of food.
There were
I
a
try to
bunch of
eat at
sweet
least
shops
once a
in
day.
town, too. High-quality European candy, but so cheap.
Sounds like you ate your way across the country.
Well, food's an important part of local culture, you know. Oh, and speaking of which,
That is
the
true.
seafood. I didn't expect to see Mediterranean fish in African cuisine, but it was also fresh and flavorful. They'd fry up small fish whole, then drizzle them with lemon juice. I could have eaten that all day.
Sounds like a lot of calories.
I tried to stay
It's
active,
fish,
you know.
right? And fish doesn't have that many
Did you know my
calories.
visual analyzers can tell me how much someone weighs?
Yeah, I'll have to talk with Doc about disabling that one.
Oh, you.
Roger that. Save complete.
You saved me again, Courtney.
Right. Anything else? Otherwise, I should get back.
Actually, yeah. You mentioned SOP earlier.
Here we go.
How much
Here's
do you
the
know about
very
it?
important
The Sons of the Patriot
codec
system?
call.
Same stuff as anyone else in the industry, probably. Basically, a nanomachine software combo for controlling contractors. Used to be required for all PMCs. Soldiers couldn't fire unless their ID matched their weapon and they had clearance. From their commanding officers. And the rules of engagement, I mean. It had some mental effects as well. Moderating pain,
Oh, we remember
enhancing
that.
concentration, that sort of thing. The idea was SOP would minimize arms smuggling and civilian casualties.
A kinder, gentler war. An oxymoron, any way you look at it. Civilian deaths did drop, though.
Because soldiers in the system could coordinate in real time.
Yeah, we saw
and share
that.
info.
We saw the Rat Patrol do
Between
that.
that and the ID weapon locks, a lot of people felt better about employing privatized military. The irony is, the system was developed based on criticisms of PMC ops, mostly American interventions. SOP propaganda said it would put limits on the war market.
I like that they get
What it
into that
really
too.
did was shift
The
market
pro
share over
SOP
to the
propaganda
PMCs.
in the marketing of
Civilian
it.
deaths went down, but total casualties just kept on climbing.
More than ever, war was big business.
And business was booming. Until SOP got hacked. Suddenly, everyone realized how dangerous it was to have a single system controlling entire PMCs. That was the beginning of the end for SOP. Public opinion on privatizing war did a 180. After that, a lot of local conflicts and civil wars died down. The PMC conglomerates had to split up and downsize just to stay in business.
Yep, no more Outer Haven
And
Corporation
that about does it for SOP
controlling the
101.
5 largest PMCs. Also helps
bad,
that, you know, we
Professor,
kind of
but it's
killed
not the whole
Liquid
story.
Ocelot. That
I know.
Let's finish this
did a
later.
little bit of the heavy lifting there. But yeah, I really like how we get into this and how we actually summarize and
Roger that.
truncate everything MGS4 was trying to
I
say
thought we'd
about
get back to
SOP
our
and
little
the
history
Patriots.
What do you know about the Patriots?
And here we go.
I know that they were
Pay
behind
attention, this is
everything
important.
We talked about before with the SOP system. People
Makes
thought
it
these 12 guys
way
controlled
more
world
clear than
politics and the
anything in
global
MGS2
economy
or
from
4
the
could have
shadows.
done.
And they were right. Except there weren't 12. And they weren't guys.
Well, there's the
or
Wiseman's
even
Committee
human.
of the
They were
philosophers back
massive
in the day,
AI
but
networks.
All the better to
Raiden
gather
wouldn't have known
information
about
on a
that.
global scale, or censor it if they wanted. They'd manipulate factions to keep wars raging.
Patriots
all
as
while
we know
selling
them, of
arms
course,
to
were
both
the
sides.
AIs.
The PMCs made billions too, of course. SOP was the Patriots' masterstroke. They could control battles directly, down to each individual soldier. The system might even still be around if the AIs hadn't all been destroyed.
Yep,
I'm impressed. You know your stuff.
we took care of that
Not many
too.
people have even heard of the Patriots.
And
More than
that's
when they
kind
were
of the
active,
most
but still,
important
not many.
line right
Almost no
there
one
is
knows
that,
they were AIs,
yeah,
or that they're the
not
real
everyone
reason
knew about
SOP
that.
went
All of the
away.
characters in
Well,
MGS4
the few
knew,
that
of
do
course.
know aren't
MGS4
going
is a
to
very
talk about it publicly.
it's a
Even the
weirdly
world
like
leaders.
character-driven,
Especially
emotional story,
But they
and I
would
do
panic,
think Metal Gear's best
assuming
when it
anyone
does
believed
that.
them,
But
which they wouldn't. You can find
it kind of
speculation on the
makes
net
it
if you
hard
look
to
hard enough.
get an
Some
objective
of them
look
get
at what's
pretty
actually
close to the
going on
truth,
in the world. And
but
yeah,
the
this
stories
kind of
never
just
made it
outright
into the
says, oh yeah,
mainstream.
most people didn't know about the
Just another
Patriots. We knew about
conspiracy theory.
SOP.
I'm not
But
surprised.
as we're
It's a little hard to
explaining
believe,
here,
you know?
most
It
people
just
thought the Patriots
sounds
was just
crazy.
a wild
When
conspiracy
Kevin
theory.
briefed me about all this in orientation,
And that's,
I
you
thought
know,
it
the
was some
people
kind
who had
of
heard of
BS
it.
detecting test.
I like that, though. That's interesting. It kind of paints a better picture of the world, again, than anything in MGS4
Roger
did.
that. Keep up the good work. Hey, Raiden, let me ask you something. The Patriots. Why would AIs do
Well, we
all
got a
that?
very lengthy
I can
cutscene
see why
about that.
people would want all the money, but AIs? What did they stand to gain?
You can
from
go
it all?
watch that video
Who
if you want,
knows?
Courtney.
Maybe they didn't even know.
Yeah, they kind of didn't know.
Optical neuro AIs aren't your typical PCs. They learn over time, change in unpredictable ways. The core AI, JD, was
JD?
bent on expanding the war economy.
We're talking about
Maybe to
JD
fund the
even. I
Patriots'
love
other
this game. I
activities.
love that they
Or
actually
maybe
go
that's
into all
just
of
the way
this.
it evolved, like a secondary objective that took over. One of the other AIs said it was created to filter out unnecessary information.
Yep, that was
gossip,
GW.
Trivia, all for the sake of future generations, to drive the evolution of the human race. Or so it said. Was that the truth? Or a lie? To manipulate me?
Uh-huh.
Who can say?
To think
Bringing back the
something
MGS2
like that running
narrative
a
there. I
nation.
kind of like it. Kind of like
In
it.
America, no less. It's terrifying. Thank God they were all destroyed.
But did it really change that much?
Whoa.
Maybe not. Contractors still gotta eat after all. Soldiering for hire's always been a risky business, but at least before it was good money. There was a decent chance you could get rich and retire early. All that disappeared during the SOP years. Demand was high, but the workforce was flooded. More and more soldiers were willing to work for cheap. It got so you'd have to work years before you could even pay back your initial training and insurance fees.
Yeah, I can see Sundowner's point.
The global recession certainly didn't help. Unemployment shot up across the
Oof.
US and the EU. Even if contractors gave up and packed it in, there weren't any jobs waiting for them back home.
The irony is the recovery was all war-driven. It wasn't a general recovery at all. Not only did globalization exploit the poor countries, but it crippled first world employment too.
And SOP's gone. But now we've got these PMCs that are basically mobsters. Just thugs in uniform.
Cyborg uniforms,
Yeah.
mostly.
Not a pretty picture.
All right. Let's go to customize. Because I think by now we can afford some more moves. But yeah, I really like the calls with Courtney regarding the Patriots. They just do a much more elegant job of explaining what the hell all that was about. Let's get Thunderstrike. Why not? Let's get Sweep Kick too. And now we get access to Lightning Strike. Now we can't afford this yet, but this is arguably the most important move in the game. It's extremely good. It's basically a stinger from Devil May Cry. We'll definitely be getting that as soon as possible.